the exam to keep the
Offer
offer
open
open.
and continued negotiations?
That's correct.
Okay, so Mr. Jenks, this is really focusing on the felony case of what they call the waiver of the preliminary examination. And it's a hearing where we wouldn't take any testimony today. The case simply moves on to the Kent County Circuit Court. It moves on to the Kent County Circuit Court with the offer being preserved, but then continued negotiations on the case as well. There's no testimony taken in front of me. And as the case moves on to Circuit Court, within the next 6 weeks or so, Mr. Pebley would be in contact with you about when your date is downtown. Do you want us to just send the documentation to you, Mr. Pebley, and you sign on his behalf? Or do you want me to have, or do you, yeah, that's fine. So Mr. Jenks, you're giving authority to Mr. Pebley to sign the document that I have that says you're waiving the preliminary exam and you're waiving the circuit court arraignment, which just eliminates the need for you to be formally arraigned again. Do you understand that? So then really all you need to do is stick to talking to your attorney so you know what's going on from here on out, okay? All right, Mr. Pebley, my clerk will be emailing you those documents. You take care of them and send them back to us. And let us know, you know, when you get that resolved, because the misdemeanor with us is going to be dismissed, presumably, when you guys take care of however you're dealing with the felony.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right.
Could we address the issue of bond, Your Honor?
Yeah, let's do that.
I think it's a 10,000 cash bond.
Yep.
Now, I would ask, since we have a valid address, a valid phone number, and as Mr. Jenks indicated, he and his father attempted to contact, but were not successful.
Right. Now, are you familiar that he's on bond? Are you familiar that he's on bond on a separate case?
No.
There is a separate case, isn't there?
In here, Kent County?
Pending charges now with us. There is an Ionia County driving suspended. There's a Montcalm County driving suspended. And it says the defendant was out on a 5,000 PR bond, possession of meth, failed to appear in July, pending charges 63rd. That's a separate file from last year, D1904616ST. Here's all I'll do, Mr. Pebley. I'll change it from a cash surety to a 10%.
Okay.
You can deal with it from there if you can. If not, talk with your attorney and figure out what you want to do from there. But look into whether there's that other matter that was identified only in the court services report. I don't know anything more about it.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Since Mr. Jenks is waiting, can we excuse?
Yes?
Since Mr. Jenks is waiting, can we please excuse Deputy Porter?
Yep, Deputy Porter can be excused then, and you can let him disconnect. Thank you, Deputy Porter. Sorry for the length of this.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good day.
Okay, all set. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Pebley. Appreciate your courtesies. We're through then, Deputy. Thanks so much, Mr. Jenks. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Your
Is it
Honor.
Peggy Swift?
Yeah, yes.
Ms. Swift, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. And the case that we have with your name on it is a retail fraud third from the Meyer they're talking about on Cascade, 28th Street, Cascade Meyer. They're talking about the date of July 7 this summer. Retail fraud is a shoplifting case. They're alleging that you scanned items purposely at a price that was not the original price of the items. They're alleging it was about $112 worth of property that you tried to take without paying properly for it. They call it retail fraud third degree as a misdemeanor. It's up to 93 days in jail. It's up to $500 fine. Court costs can be on top of that. You can plead guilty or not guilty. You can have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You can have an attorney. But if you go forward today, it's you and me talking about it. You won't have an attorney. You won't have a trial. You make the decision about going forward based on whatever the facts were July 7. If there's anything you don't agree with, you can appeal it to the higher court, that's circuit court. And you're given 3 weeks to appeal to the higher court. Any questions about that?
No, I don't want to go.
I don't want to what?
Do you mean that oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So, I don't want.
The decision that you'd make today is whether
Yeah.
you want to plead guilty or plead not guilty. If you plead guilty, then I move forward with the penalty phase. You don't have an attorney and
Right.
you'd never have a trial. If you pled not guilty, they'd schedule it for a trial and bring in the Meyer people and bring in any whatever evidence they've got to prove that you did something wrong.
Right,
Not just something wrong, but retail fraud third degree elements.
yes.
Now, what is confusing to you?
Oh, I understand now. I'm sorry. So I do plead guilty.
Is it your decision?
Yes.
Do you feel like anybody's forcing you to do it? Family, friends, anybody, me?
No.
That day this summer, July 7, did you go to that Meyer in Cascade?
Yes.
Was it open to the public?
Yes.
Did you make a specific effort to actually take price tags off of lower priced items to use those items for scanning the tags on other items that weren't that price?
They were they were the tickets that you go and you would get off from like the produce.
Yeah.
And then those
So
are the
why would you do it? Why would you do it, Miss Swift?
well, I was low on cash that week and I know it was wrong and I should have waited until I could afford it, but I wanted to get my niece some items for her open house that weekend or graduation open house. But I know I should not have done that. That was not right. And I am very sorry for that.
Well, if we assume that you were going to give your niece these different gifts, do we also assume that you would tell her they were not stolen, or you don't talk about it, or do you tell her they're stolen?
I would want,
If you think it through, you would never tell her anything about what you did. You just make it look like you bought her a gift.
yes, and that was wrong.
So you're deceiving everybody in this whole scenario. Do you think of yourself as a thief?
No, I don't.
You talk about being short on cash. That's probably been an experience that every one of us has had. I don't want to ask if you've ever thought of robbing someone or breaking into a bank. I doubt if it's that extent.
No.
But how do you differentiate what you're talking about? When you're low on cash, you have this scheme that takes thought and it takes action on your part to deceive Meyer and act like you're buying produce when you're actually buying home goods supplies. You're not buying them, you're stealing them.
Yeah.
What is your age? Are you 50?
I'm 60. I just
You're
turned
60? So, I mean, that is clearly an adult in every sense. And it's hard to try to get our brain around this. Try to picture all the people out there that are having financial difficulties now more than ever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they turn into thieves.
Yeah.
You go to Meyer and you have this idea that you're going to scan produce prices for items that are far more expensive. Like then how do you sleep with yourself a week later or a month later and you know you stole it? Or every time you go to your niece's house, she's got the blanket or the sheet set or the towels or whatever it was that was stolen. And she doesn't even know you stole them. And you try to act like you didn't. I don't get it.
Well, I know. It's been hard. It's been very difficult. I've had to live with it the last few months, and it's not easy.
All right. Well, you're going to have to sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and figure out who's Peggy Swift. I don't know anybody that you know, if I pulled up 10 people that you're friends, they would not say you're a thief. So if this is so out of character, and I don't know if your mother's still living, I doubt if your mother ever taught you this.
No.
Yeah. So something's going on, Miss Swift, and you got to get to the bottom of it. Because you weren't born yesterday. And all the way through this whole scam, that's what it is, it's a scam. All the way through this whole scam, you knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. You got to call into question why, and you're the only one that can figure it out. I don't give you any more jail on this case, but I accept your plea of guilty. It's a 93-day suspended jail sentence with credit for 1 day. 92 days are held over your head. It'll be 6 months 6 months non-reporting probation. You don't come in and report, but we monitor that you have no new offenses, no new problems with the court, no new charges. A lot of people tell me you'll never see me again, Judge. And I get it. I get the basic concept. And a lot of people do say that. And a lot of them mean it. And some of them can follow through with it. Some can't. If you're not expecting to have this happen again, it's got to be your decisions about how you change how you're doing things. Financial difficulty or not. It's a $300 fine. $180 is the fee for probation and a $75 crime victim's right fee. Your monetary fees on this case, Ms. Swift, are $555. That's a huge amount of money. Myers got everything back that you did not pay for, correct?
Yes.
So there's no restitution where they were out money. When people steal from money, it's the rest of us that pay the higher prices. Meyer can't afford to have all that stuff stolen. You should see how many people I have in front of me that steal. Obviously, they're in the business to sell product for profit. They're not trying to give it away. Use your head, because the choices you made on this scenario were extremely poor decisions on your part.
Yeah.
And if that's really not who you are, Miss Swift, show that.
I will.
Show that to others.
I will.
Okay, they're going to
Yes,
talk
very
to you about
sorry.
setting up the payment plan.
Okay.
You didn't have any bond money down, but they'll set up a payment plan with you. Is the address that we're still using, the one on Swift Lane, good?
Yes.
Is that like named after your family or something?
Yes.
So do you tell your family about this?
I'm just my husband.
Yeah. Okay, well, get yourself back on track. You're the only one that can do it.
I will. Thank you.
All right, thank you for waiting. I know you waited. Thank you for hooking up.
All right.
Probation will be in contact with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Mr. Obande?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm so sorry to make you and your client wait for so long. We've been very busy all morning, and it gets to be like that. Probably feels a little bit like when people go to the doctor's office and they have to wait longer than they want to, but I was trying to hustle. And even though I made you wait, dealing with that other felony case where the guy was in custody, of course, I have him physically here, but his attorney was on Zoom, so it made it complicated to have him communicate. I just want to tell Mr. Fifield and you, I really appreciate that you waited, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
Not a problem at all, Your Honor.
Mr. Fifield, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Obande worked out an agreement with the prosecuting attorney from the car accident you had this past spring. Mr. Obande, are you the one in the plaid shirt?
No, Your Honor, I'm on the camera right here.
Okay, I apologize. I said the wrong name. Mr. Fifield, are you the one in the plaid shirt?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's the guy with you?
My cousin.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to see who I'm talking to. I wasn't sure which was which. I knew who you were, Mr. Obande. I said the wrong name. Okay, so Mr. Fifield, when you look back on this car accident, June 21, well, chances are pretty good you're going to remember bits and pieces of it, and it was probably pretty intense. You got charged with drunk driving, high BAC, that they sometimes call the super drunk law. And then they gave you a ticket for a civil infraction calling failing to yield the accident by turning left in front of this other vehicle where you thought you had room and you did not. If Mr. Obande was working with the prosecutor and had the 6-month misdemeanor dismissed, if you decided to plead to the OWI. OWI stands for operating while intoxicated. It's a misdemeanor. It's up to 93 days in jail. It's up to $500 fine. Court costs can be on top of that. You have the right, Mr. Fifield, to plead guilty or not guilty to the charge. You have the right to have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You have the right to have an attorney, and Mr. Obande is here on the Zoom with us, more than capable of representing you. But the ultimate decision has to be yours. Not being funny, it can't be your cousin or your mother or your sister or your attorney or me. It has to be you, Mr. Fifield, about what happened on June 21, West River Drive, US 131. So far, can you think of any questions for me, Mr. Fifield?
No, ma'am.
If you do go forward and there was anything you didn't agree with, you're given 3 weeks, 21 days after being sentenced. You're given 3 weeks to appeal a case to the higher court, which is circuit court. So if we go back in time to June 21, which is almost 4 months ago, West River Drive and US 131, to the charge of operating while intoxicated, the 93-day misdemeanor, how do you want to plead, Mr. Fifield?
Guilty.
To the charge of a civil infraction, failing to yield the right of way, a civil traffic ticket, do you want to admit it or deny it?
Admit it.
So take me back in time, Mr. Fifield, to the date of June 21. Are there parts of this accident that you remember?
Yes.
Were you driving that Jeep?
Yes.
Is it a vehicle you're familiar with?
Yes.
Do you own it?
No.
But you were borrowing someone's car and they knew you had it?
Yes.
Is it a friend or a family member?
Family member?
And what kind of Jeep is that? I'm kind of a Jeep person myself. I own 2.
Oh, it's a Grand Cherokee.
Yeah, that's a good size SUV.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to driving that day, Mr. Fifield, where were you?
And my son's?
Your son is an adult person?
Yes.
When I read the assessment that you had completed at New Life Counseling, they said when you were at your son's, you had about 8 12-ounce beers that were Bud Light. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Do you remember having any whiskey?
No.
The whole day, do you ever remember having any whiskey?
No.
Okay. Mr. Obande, when you read the police report, did you ever read anything about whiskey?
I did not.
Okay.
I can't recall.
Perhaps I've got that mixed up somewhere. I thought I saw something about whiskey.
Was it?
While speaking with Donald,
Yes.
he repeated his statement of how he used to be a truck driver. Donald repeated the statement 3 or 4 times to the deputy. Donald admitted that he drank 2 whiskey sours approximately an hour ago with a hamburger for dinner. Donald stated he used Canada House for the choice of whiskey. Donald initially could not remember what road the accident occurred on. Eventually, Donald was able to tell me he was driving on West River Drive and was currently parked on the shoulder of US 131. When I asked what time Donald drank his whiskey sours, Donald stated an hour ago, but did not know the exact time. Donald added he did not know the current time. I asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, how drunk he felt. 1 being sober, 10 being very drunk. He thought a 1 or a 2. Does any of that ring a bell, Mr. Fifield? Not
No.
really?
No.
Okay. And when you took a breathalyzer, you did one right at the scene, correct?
Yes.
Were you physically hurt in this accident?
No.
Did you ever have to go to the hospital?
No.
Was your friend or family member's Jeep Cherokee, Grand Cherokee totaled?
No.
Was it repaired?
Yes.
Okay. What portion of your vehicle got struck?
The passenger rear tire.
Okay. And to this day, now, 4 months later, is that car completely repaired?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you ever remember talking to the officer about drinking 8 Bud Light beers at your son's?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever remember taking a breathalyzer down at the jail?
Yes.
The one at the scene that you took, do you remember what the result was, Mr. Fifield?
No.
Do you remember what the one down at the jail was?
No.
Did you ever hear anyone tell you that either of those breathalyzer tests were over the legal limit?
Yes.
The numbers that I showed, Mr. Obande, were 0.19 downtown at the jail, 0.22 on the PBT at the scene.
Right.
Was that your understanding as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Fifield, when you look back on this whole experience, are you pleading guilty because you really should not have been driving the car?
Yes.
Because of the amount of alcohol in your system, you should not have been driving the car?
Yes.
Do you really believe that now as you sit there today?
Yes, I do.
Do you know how you let yourself leave your son's house? Like, did anyone talk about it? Like, Dad, you've had several beers. It's not smart for you to drive. Nobody talked about it?
No, ma'am.
Where were you going?
To my house?
And were you going to your house for the evening or for any particular reason, just going home?
Just going home?
And the accident was around 6:30 at night?
That one I don't recall.
Do you know what time you were at your son's, or if you were there for a meal? Was it lunchtime, or did you have any meal at your son's?
Lunchtime?
Yeah?
Yep.
And is there anybody at your son's besides you and he that day?
No, he wasn't there. Just his wife and kids and my grandkids.
So your son wasn't even there?
He was gone somewhere with his buddy, I guess.
So you were just hanging out with them, seeing the kids.
Yep.
Do you take your own beer there, or do you get it from them?
Sometimes I buy it.
Do you remember that day if you took a 12-pack with you?
No, I did not.
Is Bud Light your beer of choice?
Yes.
So if you have 8 Bud Lights at your son's house, I'm guessing, I don't know this, your daughter-in-law, she's not sitting there drinking them with you, is she?
No, not all the time.
But you would have gotten the beer from their refrigerator, presumably.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, I'll ask you, Mr. Obande, whether you believe the court has complied with the court rule in terms of the taking of the plea.
Yes, Your Honor.
How many grandkids would be at that house? Just if you have an idea, I'm sure you know. Mr. Fifield?
Just a minute, ma'am.
Kind of counting them?
3,
What about the ages, roughly?
18, 14. And the other one, I don't know.
Younger? Younger than the 14-year-old? So 18 is the oldest and the younger one is younger than 14?
It'd be 14, 15, and 18.
Okay, and those are all your son's kids?
No, they're all my grandkids.
Right? And who's their parent?
My son,
Yeah, okay, your son's
daughter.
kids.
My daughter
Okay.
kid was there.
Son and daughter?
Yes.
Okay. Well, try to imagine, Mr. Fifield. Try to imagine what we're supposed to say to your son, his wife, your daughter, if she has a partner or whatever, those kids, if you're killed in a car accident. You got to sit down with the 18-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 13-year-old. Do they call you grandpa?
Yes.
I don't know if they have other grandparents, but they say Grandpa Don or Grandpa. How are we
Yes.
supposed to tell them that Grandpa Don is killed in a car accident? I'm just asking you to think about this, because in my estimation, that's exactly what could have happened here.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
those kids grow up knowing that you know, they love you, you're a good grandpa, I'm sure you are. And they learn that you died in a drunk driving accident when you're a .19. After drinking 8 Bud Light beers at their house. Now, I get that it didn't happen. But if you read the paper, Mr. Fifield, or you looked at the news, even while we've been talking, somebody out there somewhere has been killed in a car accident. Doesn't have to be alcohol related.
Yes.
Sometimes there's car accidents and there's no alcohol or drugs involved. But when alcohol is involved, it increases tremendously the chance of something bad happening. Now, you turned left in front of these people and you thought you could make it.
Yes.
And you have all this experience as a truck driver, so you think you have perhaps more knowledge of driving than the regular person. Maybe you do, I don't know. I don't know what your years on the truck driving route has been. I'm hoping that you were never drunk when you were driving your truck for your work.
Oh, ma'am.
But I bet on the road, as a truck driver, you saw every possible type of situation that could occur,
Yes.
including accidents. But
Yes.
I'm saying in this situation, what if? What if it would have been different than how it ended up? What if you killed the lady in the other car or the guy in the other car? And when you're driving the car with a .19 blood alcohol level, .22 when they tested you at the scene, you could be driving perfectly and you're still criminally liable. In fact, the accident doesn't even have to be your fault, although they're clear in this case that the accident was your fault, that you didn't have the room that you thought you did to turn left in front of that car.
Yes, ma'am.
But the point is, you never should have been driving. The point is, you never should have left your son's house driving.
Yes.
But if you're not ready to really recognize that and sit down and have a serious talk with yourself, then something like this can happen again.
No, ma'am.
Well, we don't want it to, that's for sure. You
Right.
get a do-over here, Mr. Fifield. The week before last, I had 2 fatalities. Both were on a Friday that we talked about the cases. When we're talking about the cases, they happened months and months previous. So even though I had them 2 weeks ago Friday, they were months and months ago, like your case. Your arrest was June. It's October right now. But when I was dealing with those fatalities, 2 different cases, completely separate, the families are devastated. And honestly, well, you could ask your cousin, he's sitting there listening to all this. Your family would be devastated if they heard that Donald Fifield was killed in a car accident. To be honest with you, they'd be devastated if you killed another person in a car accident, even if it wasn't you that was killed. It's a different type of devastation, but it's devastation nevertheless, no question. What do you do now, Mr. Fifield? Are you retired?
No, ma'am, working.
Still with the trucking company?
No, ma'am.
What is it that you do?
I work refinishing products for
Yep.
auto parts.
Okay. That's a lot of work. Mr. Obande, I'm going to ask you, since I've been doing all the talking, do you believe the court has complied with the court rule in terms of the taking of the plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
What would you like to say, Mr. Obande, on behalf of your client, Mr. Fifield, regarding this entire matter?
Yes, Your Honor. I explained to Mr. Fifield, this is a very, very serious matter. I have a daughter, I told him, that's about to start driving. And I told him, I worry about clients like you when she's about to start driving. And he paused and looked at me. I mean, he was very contrite, but I told him this just can't happen. I mean, and just like you said, Your Honor, he gets a do-over. And he just cannot operate in this matter, whether he's with his family, with his kids or anything. He said it was Father's Day. I said, doesn't matter. Most people don't get do-overs. But I would ask for leniency, Your Honor, in regards to my client. And I do believe that he's very contrite for his actions.
Okay. I want to inquire as it relates to Mr. Fifield, whether there's anything you can think of that you want to say.
I'm remorseful, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I want to say. I read in the report that you had 13 siblings. 8 brothers and 5 sisters.
10 brothers and 5 sisters.
How many brothers?
10, counting myself.
Is that all from the same parents?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm one of 10.
Wow.
So I can relate to a large family. Are your parents deceased?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know the history of your family, but you have to really face this square on, Mr. Fifield, to not let yourself ever have this repeat itself. And what I'm talking about is whether you have a drinking problem or not. You can't drive the car if you've ever been drinking, because that's what puts lives in jeopardy.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to give you more jail now, but it's a 93-day suspended jail sentence where you get credit for 2 days in jail. 91 days are held over your head. 12 days of community service, 1 year of probation. $730 in fines, $360 fee for probation, $75 crime victims' right fee, and $275 goes back to the Kent County Sheriff's Department. That's $1,440. Then you pay the restitution for the Plainfield Township Fire Emergency Rescue appearing on the scene. That's $758.35. And that goes towards you as restitution in this case. So the monetary amount, with everything included from this car accident that could have been a fatal, and thank God it wasn't, is $2,198.35. $2,198.35. The Secretary of State is going to take your license away. We'll set up a payment plan while you're on probation for 1 year. You can't have any alcohol. You can't use any illegal drugs. You can't misuse any prescription medication. You can't even use marijuana. It's standard. I say that to everybody, even if you don't use it. And you will be required to do testing, Mr. Fifield, to make sure you're staying clean. Counseling will be ordered as part of this. Now, is the address on Lantern Drive in Comstock Park good?
No, ma'am.
What's the new address that you go by?
3530 Marine Street.
Like Maureen, like a lady's name?
No, like Marine?
Oh, Marine Street?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is that?
Granville, Michigan,
Okay, and what's that zip?
49418.
Okay. It's 3530 Marine Street, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I inadvertently left out the ticket for failing to yield, which is a standard 140, and that gets added onto this. So the total on everything is 2338.35. It's a lot of money, there's no question about it, but they'll work out a payment plan for you, Mr. Fifield. Can you think of any questions you have for me, Mr. Fifield?
When could I work out the payment plan?
The clerk from the court will be in contact with you. You'll learn who your probation officer is, and you'll have contact by them by phone
Okay,
or by mail or possibly by Zoom, and the probation officer will work with you on setting that up.
okay.
Any questions? Mr. Obande?
No, actually, Your Honor, is he doing a 180-day suspension for work? Will it be restricted the first 30 days and then will he be able to drive?
The Secretary of State handles the entire driver's suspension. I don't get involved in it. Mostly it's a 6-month suspension where the first day they're restricted, or the
Okay.
the first month they're without it, then they get a restricted.
Correct.
He should talk directly with the SOS to find that out, but that's the standard practice, depending on what his overall driving record looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay? All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have your.
All right, thanks again for hooking up, Mr. Obande and Mr. Fifield. I appreciate your patience.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, be smart, Mr. Fifield. Be real smart.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, Mr. Tarango?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you have any other cases that you needed me for?
No, Your Honor, I don't believe so.
All right, appreciate it then. You're free to disconnect. Thanks so much. Is there anybody on the phone in this Zoom meeting that wants to be heard? Anybody on that Galaxy A01 that's called in still connected?